You're proclaiming it. I remember something about it. The day before Snake Saturday. Oh, that's, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting, November 5th, 2019. Could we have a moment of silence? Fred? Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Comments from the public? Hearing none, let's move on. Consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 11, Eric?
Thank you, sir. The Snake Saturday, the agreement with Northland Festivals to put on Snake Saturday Parade is further on up in your agenda. But the Northland Festivals has asked the mayor to proclaim the Friday before Snake Saturday as Green Friday. So with your permission, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation that we've done. Whereas the Snake Saturday Parade is an annual event in North Kansas City, Missouri, and whereas the Snake Saturday Parade has been conducted on the streets of North Kansas City, Missouri for the past 35 years, always the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day, and whereas the Associated Festival, Charity Cook-Off, Grand Marshal Celebration, and Lad and Lassie events are also conducted in North Kansas City, Missouri, and as such, these events draw numerous charities and other organizations to the city of North Kansas City, Missouri. And whereas the public is welcome to participate in any of these events as participants or observers, now therefore I, Don Stilo, Mayor of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, do hereby recognize the Friday before Snake Saturday as Green Friday, at which all who live, work, and play are encouraged to wear green and prepare for the festivities on Snake Saturday. Very good.
Job, Mayor.
Well, I did good, didn't I? Do we need a vote or anything on that?
No, sir, I don't think so. You can make proclamations all by yourself. So.
All right, moving on. Oh, wait a minute. Yep. Yeah, 12.
12,
Yeah.
Caboose renovation update.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. On May 15th, 2018, the city entered into an agreement with the North Kansas City Historical Society for preservation efforts for the railroad caboose located in Caboose Park. Their efforts involve replacement of windows, remodeling of steps in the landing area, electrical compliance, construction of a wooden platform, and exterior painting, with any excess funds being used for interior improvements to the caboose. The Historical Society has until December 31st of this year to complete its work on the caboose refurbishment. The Historical Society is then required to provide receipts for any labor and material costs. Any funds left over on December 31st are to be returned to the city. Jim Spahn, President of the Historical Society, will provide an update to the City Council on the progress of the project. So, Mr. Spahn.
Good evening. I'm Jim Spahn. I'm president of the Historical Society and chief cook and bottle washer of the caboose. When we began this project, we kind of didn't know what we were getting into, but we saw a need for this because the caboose was really deteriorating rapidly. And I'm happy to give you a very positive report tonight on some of the activities that we've done there with the funds that the city has granted to us. But first, a little background. I could find no history about where this caboose came from. I interviewed the last 3 mayors. None of them knew exactly where it came from. There was no record of where it came from. And in searching for other things, I went down to the railroad yard and said, well, you need to talk to Greg Ritter. And he's kind of the local, he's a history guy. So I find this guy. And we're talking about the caboose. He said, well, what do you want to know? I put the caboose there. I said, what? I put the caboose there. If you see that first slide in your packet, you can see the long line of cabooses that were parked next to our Bella Hess building down there. His job was to get rid of all these cabooses. And he said at one time they had more than 25 cabooses there, and his job was to make them go away. He said, we sold them, we scrapped them, we gave them away, we did whatever we could to make them go. And after they were all gone, he said, I'm doing the whoop whoop, I got it all done. And a day later, this one comes in. And by then they had taken action to remove the tracks. So not only did they not have a place to go, they had no way to physically move it. So the story goes that they gave it to the city with their compliments. So the caboose was a free gift, I guess, on behalf of Burlington Northern Railroad. The second picture you see there is right after they acquired it. They gave it a paint job. I understand the Boy Scouts painted it, and they gave it a good facelift to get started. But over the years, it deteriorated, and you can see the next picture at the top of the pictures on page 2. The paint faded. Almost all of the windows were broken, which caused water damage from the cupola up above and damaged some of the wood inside. On page 3, you see a picture of our caboose back when it was in service. That serial number 10305 is just like the Social Security number for a railroad car. Stays with them their whole life, and it always identifies that particular one. So you can see we tried to obtain from Burlington Northern the exact documents in order to restore it and put the lettering back the way it was and do the best we could to make it look right. On page 4, I don't know if you've driven by there, but the lights are on, and there's been other achievements down there too. All the windows have been replaced, so it doesn't leak anymore. The electricity is on. The steps have been extended for safety reasons down there. And we got with Kathy Warman, an architect here in town, said, what else could we do down there to preserve the safety, make this as much as we can? And she said, well, let me throw out some ideas. And so she came forward with the drawings that you see on page number 6. And our idea is to have a platform that runs the full length of the caboose and then goes beyond it to make like a little welcoming station where you could, pretend like you're getting on the train. So she came up with the idea of the clock and also the sign there that says Caboose Station there. You'd access it from the end, and we were told we have to have a wheelchair ramp. Even though a wheelchair can't fit through the door into the caboose, but a person could go up there and peek in and do that. So we've provided for the wheelchair ramp as well. She also suggested some lighting down there, more so than what we have there now. Right now, the only lighting we have are the little interior lights inside, and they're low voltage, and then also some corner lights on the outside that light up as well. On page 7, you can see the big overview. There's a city-owned parking lot there that I don't think it's got a name to it. It's just a cement slab that people go in there and park, but it would be kind of like the entrance to that. And what we were hoping to do is to get a couple of these railroad crossing signs, put one of them up there, the ones you see on page 4, put one at the driveway and then one up by the caboose. We're hoping to get those donated. I found that railroad guys are kind of like, they treasure all of their artifacts. They don't want to give them up very easily, but we hope we can get a pair of those donated. Along the way, we also found other people that found out what we were doing and wanted to help. For example, the Burlington Northern Community Credit Union said, hey, we've got ties to Burlington Northern and the caboose. We want to be a part of that. What could we do? I said, well, how would you like to donate the clock? He said, well, how much money do we need? Well, I had no idea what a clock like that costs. It's 24 inches. And the guy, we went to the clock shop, which is in Kansas City, 5 generations of clock builders. This is the guy who restored the clock in Union Station. He knows what he's doing with clock. And he got excited about what we're doing. He said, tell you what, you get the clock, I'll install it for free. And when we install these kind of clocks, they're new clocks, but they're made to look old. And if the power goes out, they reset themselves whenever the power goes back on. They're kind of carefree once we get going. So anyway, he's the manager here at the credit union is meeting with their board this week to see if they'll donate the money for the clock. Yates Electric also did all the electrical work, and a big part of this has been the Builders Association Training Center. Just in the work we've done thus far, it's provided training time for the steel workers, students, the glazier students putting the windows in, the painters. We already put the first coat of exterior green on there. The painters are involved in that. And of course, Yates Electric also utilizes the electrical students as well to work on that project. So it's become kind of a multi-educational format. This on page 9 is a appreciation or a marker that was off of the Weston has a very similar caboose at their city hall, and they had this placard on it. It recognizes somebody there, but we wanted to put a marker right on the caboose that recognizes all these people that have played a role in refurbishing and keeping the caboose viable. The last page, page 10, is a little financial report of what we've done. And I think when I was here last time, I said we'd spend the money like it was our own. And we have. We haven't spent a lot of it because of using the labor from the builders union. We were required to provide a liability insurance policy just in case someone should get hurt while we're working on that. And we've had 2 years of that policy. We bought the materials for the windows. These are Lexan thick plastic glass, which is what they're using for these kind of projects. You know, the caboose will never be back on the rails again, so there's no sense putting glass back in there. The anticipated budget that we are looking at for completion of the project, we need some construction drawings to proceed and make sure that the platform is built to code, and we've entered into an agreement just today or yesterday with Norton and Schmidt Company here in town to prepare those drawings. The materials for the platform and the wheelchair ramp, we got a huge discount on the lumber from McCray Lumber in Liberty that is providing the wood. The roofing material, the lettering, the lighting, a cement walkway, which would get you to that entry thing, the 2 railroad crossing signs, and then you see the caboose station sign, the clock, the benches, and maybe the appreciation marker will all be donated too. So it's my belief we can complete the project without any additional funds at all. Where we're lacking is the time clock keeps ticking, and the problem we've had is twofold. One, we've had with the builders union, they use students to do these things, and it's all based on their training, their classroom training, and also the weather. So they can kind of fit us in whenever it's comfortable for them, and then you got the weather to deal with as well. So that's kind of slowed things down. I thought, well, if you're providing the labor for free, we can be patient. And the train's not leaving right away. So anyway, it's taken us a little longer than what we anticipated. And then one final thing that we'd like to suggest, that first page is an aerial photograph from Google Earth. Google Earth calls that piece of ground Caboose Park, and it's not a park at all. And so we suggest you change the name from Caboose Park to Caboose Station, and I think that better describes what it is down there because it's not really a park. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
You said as far as staff had said, the timetable was just the end of this year, is that correct?
Our agreement on the money expires then.
Okay, and
Yeah.
do you think you'll be able to get it done by then, or do you need to?
No, I'm afraid not. In talking with the, for example, the paint, Tanemic donated all the paint product, but it has to be 50 degrees or more to apply the paint, so I don't think we're going to be able to do the final painting until the spring.
So is there a way, do we need to extend the agreement for them to use the money here to?
We
if
would need
if we
to-
decide,
yes,
if we
sir.
decide to go forward?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
We would need to bring you a revised agreement with a revised
Date.
completion date, yes, sir. What date would you like it
Well,
to?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I thought, well, it's hard to predict for these guys, you know, sometimes they put you off, and then the next thing you know, it's snowing, and, but other times, geez, in a couple days, they got guys down there, so, certainly within the year, I don't want to live with this the rest of my life either, so.
Can we just,
If you can extend it a year, like I said, we don't anticipate asking for any more money, we already have the money we need.
Yeah, just extend it a year.
To December 31st, 2020?
yeah,
Yeah,
that works.
they're done earlier.
It said this is not city-owned, it's private land, or?
No, it is city-owned property. I think what Mr. Spahn's saying, it's not land that we use as a functioning part of our Parks and Recreation system. So it's just a park in that it's green space, but,
Green space for the
yeah,
wall.
But we do all call it Caboose Park.
Yeah.
we have.
But we can change.
I like Caboose Station.
Anyway, thank you all, and we'll notify you when the train's about to leave.
James, I want to thank you for all your work you've done on this. If it hadn't been for you, we wouldn't be getting very down the road very far. So, thank you.
So we will plan to bring you, before the end of the year, a resolution that extends the length of the agreement, addresses the name of Caboose Station. So we'll bring that forward to you shortly.
Thank you.
Ready for 9?
13.
13.
13.
You're making us go backward.
Start over.
Oh, we've already done, okay.
All right, 13, cooperative agreement, City and North Kansas City School District, Ballfield Diamond Number 1, Bill Number 7455, Ordinance Number 9252.
All in favor? Here we go, okay. Hell, I'm confused.
All right.
Okay, let's go.
Staff report, sir?
Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. At its work session of July 16th, 2019, not November 5th, 2019, which is tonight's date, as stated on your agenda packet and in the memo, but on July 16th, 2019, in a work session, the City Council approved in principle an agreement with the North Kansas City School District to cooperate in improving Mackin Park Ballfield Diamond Number 1 and directed staff to work with the school district to develop an agreement for formal council approval. Now before the council for formal approval is that agreement, and has already been approved by the North Kansas City School District last month. The estimated cost of designing and constructing the improvements to the ball field is about $1.1 million, and the entirety of the amount necessary is budgeted in the fiscal year 2020 city budget. The improvements will be a city project, but it will be performed in cooperation with the school district, and although it's not a party to this agreement that's in front of you, also in cooperation with North Kansas City Parks Board. Basic outlines of the agreement are the district will contribute 1/2 of the costs, fees, and expenses for both the design and construction of the improvements over a 10-year period. The city will issue a request for qualifications seeking to procure a design professional for the purpose of preparing design documents and other necessary items for the improvements. The city and the district will jointly participate in the selection of that design professional. Again, I would anticipate including the Parks Board as well. The construction contract for the improvements would be between the city and the construction contractor, which would be jointly selected by the city and the school district. As I stated, the Parks Board's not a party to this agreement, but it will be the entity that houses and will operate and maintain the ball field. So I do think it's important that the Parks Board be represented during this process. The suggestion is that a joint committee composed of representatives of the city designated by the city council, Parks Board, and the school district will work with the chosen design professional on the design of the improved diamond. I would suggest 2 members from each entity, total of 6, that would then work with the designer to work on various elements of the ball field, and then they would design it to those specifications, and that would be what would be put out to bid. And then the city and the school district would jointly participate in the selection of the construction contractor. So that's it in very brief summary, and staff does recommend approval of the agreement. Can I answer any questions?
Couple things you might want to, just for the public to, and for council, if the estimated budget amount, if it goes over the budgeted amount, that's when we go back and talk to the school district and see about either renegotiating, if in the event that does happen?
Yes, sir. So if after the design is completed, the designer says this is going to cost you more than the amount you budgeted, then we would reassess. Either party would have the ability to pull out. The parties would have the ability to readjust, to mutually agree to an adjustment of the budget and a cost share. One or the other party could agree to take on the entire burden if it were to go over. The hope would be that we could,
Do it for.
one way or another, get the design to within the budget.
Okay. Another suggestion, if you're doing a committee, I know Councilmember Stewart's been down there a lot with umpiring in the past, and he might be a good person to be on that committee.
I think Mayor Steele, you had some ideas about who you'd like to appoint.
Yeah, I wanted to see if Rick would do it and then possibly Valerie. Would you be interested?
I thought we already talked about it and we decided Jesse was gonna do it, but maybe, but maybe I missed, maybe it was some meeting I didn't remember.
You played ball.
The softball, yeah, but you were baseball too. But yeah, I'm fine doing it. Okay.
All right. Well, we are ready to issue that RFQ. The school district has already reviewed the draft RFQ we prepared, so assuming approval tonight, we'll issue that tomorrow.
All right, so, call for a motion?
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance adopting and approving a cooperative agreement by and between the School District of North Kansas City, Missouri, number 74, and the City of North Kansas City, Missouri for certain improvements to Mackin Park Ball Field Diamond number 1.
I move that bill number 7455 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9252.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a cooperative agreement by and between the School District of North Kansas City, Missouri, number 74, and the City of North Kansas City, Missouri for certain improvements to Mackin Park Ball Field Diamond number 1.
Number 14.
First Amendment to Bike Share Operating Agreement, Resolution number 19-070.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In 2017, you approved a cooperative agreement with Bike Share KC for the installation and operation of 3 bike share stations in North Kansas City. These are our stations located at Armor and Iron near the YMCA, at 18th and Swift near the bus stop, and at 29th and Swift. People can rent bicycles at those 3 locations and ride them around North Kansas City or across the river into KCMO. Through October 1st of this year, 477 bicycles have been checked out from our bike share stations, and they've been ridden 4,107 miles. Earlier this year, Bike Share KC began deploying electric assist bicycles and electric scooters. They continue to use a lock-to model of operations, where vehicles must be locked to a bike rack, kiosk, or other authorized location to end a trip. But our cooperative agreement does not allow for the deployment of e-bikes or scooters other than at those 3 specified stations. So the amendment before you tonight amends our agreement to allow for the deployment of e-bikes and scooters, and it allows these vehicles to be docked or parked at a list of specified locations shown on Exhibit A to the amendment. It also adds a section related to safety requirements for the small vehicles deployed in the system. I would note that the resolution attached to this amendment Also gives authorization to the Community Development Director and the Police Chief to jointly approve changes to the list of authorized locations in Exhibit A in the future if bike racks are added, relocated, or removed from public property or the public right-of-way. Eric Vaughn of Bike Share KC is here tonight if you have any questions about how their system works. And he also had brought a couple of e-bikes to provide demos to people before the meeting. I hope that if you were interested in that, you had a chance to take a look at those. I'd also be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Go ahead. I'd seen was that you, Eric, that sent that report out about the usage?
I forwarded a report that Sarah
I
had obtained.
I was totally surprised and pleased that many people rented bikes. You know, how many, 100, 400 and something?
477 bicycles have been
Yeah.
checked out through October 1st of this year.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm impressed with the numbers.
Does this agreement lay out any kind of penalty or problem if they are not left at an appropriate location? What happens in that event?
So we actually assess a fee to users who leave their devices outside of the zone. It's a set $20 pickup fee if you leave it outside of the zone.
Is that part of an agreement they authorize when they
Part
set
of
it
the
up?
user agreement they agree to when they hit yes to get on the device.
So this one's, oh, good. This one's for staff. So how will we be updated in changes on where we can park? Will you guys provide updates if you guys agree to new locations or remove locations? Or
We would supply those locations to Bike Share KC to add to their system. They geofence all
Yeah.
of those so that, well, I don't know if you want to further talk about how the geofencing works, but yes, we would, if you approve this resolution, then the police chief and the community development director could jointly approve those, and then we would supply them to Bike Share KC,
okay.
those locations.
And then one more.
Any changes.
It might have been part of the original agreement, and I just don't recall. Was there any sort of data sharing other than just checkouts that we're considering, or I don't know?
You all are, as one of our community municipal partners, are welcome to share in on all of our data that we collect. It's unidentified data as far as the end user is concerned, but if you're looking for GPS data, things of that nature, we're absolutely happy to supply that.
Yeah, that was my kind of follow-up there. What all data is available now?
So we have endpoint-to-endpoint trip data, we have GPS route data, and then we have basic user demographic data.
Okay, thank you.
That would be helpful, the demographic data.
We also just concluded our user survey this past week, and so I'll send that on to staff so it can be sent out as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, how are these designated? Like, how will they know that this is a spot that they should be parking the bike or scooter? What does that look like?
So when you have to use an app to utilize the service, and in the app, there's a map that shows you where all of our hubs are located, where the geofences are. And if you try to end your trip outside of any of those zones, it says, no, you can't do that, and you need to go find one of these zones.
Okay, so it's not marked that anyone who's not using it would know even that those were.
Correct. So you could roll up to a bike rack and try to end your trip if you didn't look in the app map ahead of time to find where the appropriate location is. And then at that time, it says, this is not one of those locations, and it will suggest the next closest one for you.
Two quick things. On the map, I'm looking at 14th and Swift. I know that that's probably Velo Garage bike rack. There's also one like right next to it at the Brookery. Is that also on the list, or is that, because if I was looking at this map, I would probably go to either one of those.
I don't remember the other one being on the list off the top of my head.
You can see one from the other. That's why I thought it
Right, we tried to canvass bike racks that are located in the right-of-way to add to this list. So I'm not familiar with where the one near the Brookery is. If it's not in the right-of-way, that's why it's not on Exhibit A. So they could separately contact Bike Share KC about adding a bike rack that's on their property to the list of geofencing. This exhibit is just those for which we have some responsibility because it's on our property or it's in the public right-of-way.
Okay. I could just see people getting a little frustrated if they were like, okay, this is a bike rack right here, and then they try and they get denied. And thing for $20. That brings the second question. The $20 fee, where does that go? Is that for maintaining the system? Does it come to the city as revenue? Is that?
So it's mostly to offset the cost of our staff labor to have to go out and move those devices. We don't assess those on every out-of-zone pickup. So if you were close, let's say, our staff has the leeway to forego those charges.
Kind of follow up to that one. You can track bad actors, though. I mean, if you get someone that's repeatedly outside that zone, like maybe that time you pick it up free, but.
Yes, we do track parking violations and warnings that we send every user.
Yeah, thank you.
Have you had any safety concerns? I mean, with the scooters and do you have any accidents?
We have not had a single user incident, knock on wood, so far. We're really, really proud of that stat. We have gone way above and beyond in terms of the equipment selection and the operations that we've decided to do versus some of those other scooter operators you may be familiar with. But our units are much more robust. We designed them to be part of the Ride KC transportation network, so we're looking at this as a transportation device, not as a toy. And so we take a lot of pride in making sure it's a quality piece of equipment that's well-maintained locally.
Is there any communication as to like rules of the road for these scooters? Because I know they fall into that weird gray area where is it okay on the sidewalk, the bike lane, or the street? How do we get the word? Is it through the app or?
We do put that messaging in the app. You have to swipe through several screens of tips and rules of the road before it actually lets you check the device out.
Sure, I dismiss those immediately though. Like I just whip right through.
Yeah, we also do a lot of public education events.
Okay.
And just as a general rule, the main talking point is that if you're on a scooter, you treat it as though you were on a bicycle. You belong in the street, you belong in a bike lane. That's where the recommended areas are for you.
I think that information could be also put on like the kiosk where you check them out, maybe some of the rules of the road, if you have room. My question is, on these e-bikes and everything like that, when they're checked out and when they're brought back, you have to have the app and every. Now I just lost my note on it. Go ahead, continue.
If we got nothing else, then I'll move to approve resolution 19070.
Second.
We need an all in favor.
They gave you one.
Second.
You have a motion and a second on the floor.
Oh, we do.
Uh-huh. You just need to call roll. I mean, ask
Aye.
any opposed, all in favor.
Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
I guess we're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
15.
Winter averaging option for residential sewer bills.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Smith asked staff to look into the city offering the option of what is called winter averaging to city residential sewer customers. So customer sewer charges are based on the amount of water consumed as determined by the water meter. Sewer averaging allows customers to avoid paying sewer charges on water used during the summer to water lawns, plantings, etc. These activities don't increase the flow of sewage pumped into the Kansas City for processing, since the water from these activities goes into the ground, not into the sanitary sewer system. Winter sewer averaging works by averaging usage during the winter months, typically December through February for cities that do this, and billing customers based on that lower average over the course of the next year. Then each year the average is recalculated. The water billing's not changed as a result of doing sewer averaging. If somebody opts to do that, water is tied directly to the amount of water consumed for whatever purpose. If the council, so we don't have a resolution or anything in front of you tonight, but this is just for your discussion and any future direction. But if the council does wish to move forward, we would then establish the new consumption amount would begin with the May billing that's sent out on the last business day of May. Customers would have the chance to opt in or out of the sewer averaging program, so nobody who doesn't want to do it would be required to do it. It would only be for folks who want to do that. who believed that they would have some reason to save money by doing so. In the memo, I do talk a little bit about the kind of folks who might benefit from doing this, especially. In particular, the common phrase is snowbirds, people who leave town for the winter to go to warmer climes. They wouldn't use very much water, perhaps, during those 3 months. So the city would perhaps lose some revenue to which it would otherwise be entitled. On the other hand, if there were somebody who was away for the summer and used very little water during the summer months, they probably would not want to be on winter averaging. In terms of the amount of revenue lost, so there would be some loss of revenue. You would be deciding by policy that you no longer wish to collect charges for water that does not, or sewage that does not go down into the sanitary sewer system. But we don't think it would be terribly significant, in all honesty, because very little of our sewer revenue, sewer fund revenue, WPC fund revenue comes from residential, single-family residential. Only last year about 5.4%. There would be an allowance if somebody wanted to change their option one way or the other, and our recommendation would be that people could change once during the course of the year, but not constantly. That would be an administrative burden. So that's the outlines of what a program could look like. If you wanted to institute this option, we'd be prepared to do it. Our software does allow for it. So we're seeking guidance from you tonight as to whether you'd like to establish a winter sewer averaging program, and if you do, then we'll put a resolution on a future council agenda, the next one or one very close to it, to make it formal. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Is there a minimum water bill?
I'm sorry?
Is there a minimum water bill for people?
We do have a minimum water bill. Shirley, can you explain that?
I was just thinking that kind of make up for the snowbirds if they left. I mean,
Is this on? Yeah. Whether you have any usage or not, you get a meter fee for the water and a meter fee for the sewer. So that would be the minimum amount.
which is what?
Around, I think it's just under $30.
Oh, okay.
26 and some change, I think.
Yeah. It's very small.
Okay, thank you. I personally am for this option. You know, myself as an example, you know, my backyard does not have a blade of grass. It's all plants, and my wife waters all this period. And along with the sewer, you know, getting charged, I mean, we are getting charged, everybody that does waters there, we're getting charged for something we don't use. And yeah, it's good for the fund, I understand that, but still you're paying for something you don't use, so I'm for it personally.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to ask, so you mentioned the 5 point, I was curious about the lost revenue. So you mentioned the 5.4%, I think. So have you done any retrofitting of that to say, okay, had we put this plan in effect 3 years ago, we would have lost X amount of money? Or is there any information about that?
We really don't have an ability to calculate. We don't know how much usage there will be or how much difference it makes. So, no, ma'am, we really won't know until if you do institute it. And even then, I don't know if we could directly tie any less usage specifically to a winter averaging program. But we don't have a good way to calculate what we think the possible loss of revenue would be, except to say that it doesn't seem like it would be, in the grand scheme of things, a large amount of revenue in terms of, in absolute terms.
That was one of my main questions too, with the loss in revenue, since that fund is not in the best of shape. Question as far as, you know, other municipalities, do we know other municipalities, do they have this program, and have we checked around with our other partners?
So, yes, I mean, we did, in fact, I can tell you that at least two of the previous three cities that I was city manager, city administrator in, did have a winter averaging program. And when Councilmember Smith asked us to look at this, we did contact some of the ones locally that have it. I believe Liberty has it. I know my previous city, Raymore, does. Shirley, any others that?
That's the ones I talked to.
So it's not uncommon to do this. Some cities do it, some cities don't.
So I had a couple things. So I read down the memo. Thank you first for taking the time to look at this. There's a spot in the notice that would go out to residents. First thing I noticed, it says under the winter water average, it says this would be the bills received 3 months of January, February, and March. I believe that's supposed to be December, January, and February. Because the example then proceeds to
No,
use
so it's
December, January.
December water usage billed in January, January water usage billed in February, and February water usage billed in March.
Okay. Second piece, in the memo, it describes who may benefit from this, because this is a little bit like complicated to understand. I think it might help in that letter that goes out to the residents to describe who might benefit, people who water outdoors or have swimming pools.
I have done that in previous cities, yes, sir.
Okay. Also, making it clear that this is again the letter that goes out, making it clear that it's sewer only and not water. Maybe a bold line that says that. And also to make it clear that we are currently on the volume method, that is like if.
That's the default method.
Right, that is the default method. And then one question, something that Liberty offers is for new residents moving into the city, if they move in June, for example, that there's a baseline winter water average that's across the entire city that they will offer to a new resident that, say they come in and the average is 4,500. You can choose that one when you move to town, and that will be your winter water average until it resets, and we've actually calculated usage.
We talked about that, and we can do that if you like, but our thought was that for our program, we would just establish the first winter average that they had.
I don't know if that would be much more labor intensive to have that one number sit out there, and if people new to town wanted to opt in, they could, or.
Do you have any thoughts about that, Shirley?
The system will calculate that average, and we could use it. Could end up where some of our customers are paying less than that average.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's the situation. Like, I bought a property in Liberty, and then I had the option to take the winter water average or to go with what the tenants used. And the winter water average turned out advantageous to me, so that's why I ask about it as a possibility. But that's something to discuss. Just one more potential option for new residents if they ask for it. Some wouldn't even know to ask.
So is there, I guess I'd look for either a vote or a consensus to bring forward to you for formal action if you don't have any other questions tonight. Shall we bring it forward?
I think we move it ahead.
I think so.
I'm okay moving it forward. I am still concerned about the revenues, but I mean, I want people to pay for what they use,
I
not
wish
for
we
things
had a
that
way
they
to be
don't,
able to estimate that, but I
Yeah.
think without having gone through it a year, we just don't know how many folks would take advantage of this and how many, it's
Yeah.
just hard until you do it for at least a year.
Once we do it, if we do adopt it, then you can bring it back the next year and kind of let us know.
Yeah, I think, but then we could do some calculating because we'd know exactly who,
Yeah.
how many folks have it, and we'd be able to do some calculating as to
Yeah, okay.
what it actually costs.
The reason why I kind of like this as an option is it's a big impact on the individual level, and it's a small difference overall to revenue. So
Agreed, as long as it is.
yeah, it shouldn't make a big ripple,
As long
and
as
it
it
is
is, I'm okay.
paying for what you use.
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is-
I like that part of it, that you're paying for what you actually use as opposed to just, if it's a faulty method, it's a faulty method.
Ideally, everyone would have sewer meters, like businesses do, but that's not something
Right.
we can implement.
Okay.
All right, we will bring this forward for your formal consideration in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
16.
Construction phasing for downtown streetscape update.
Thank you. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
On September 24th, the City Council held a design direction workshop with Confluence, which is a landscape architecture firm working with us on our downtown streetscape update. This was the meeting we had over at Fire Station Number 1. We got good direction from you at that discussion, but one of the items that we could use some additional direction from you on is the phasing of the eventual construction for this project. Currently, we have this project budgeted over 4 budget years. So this year's budget has $500,000 budgeted for construction. In 2021, another $500,000, and then $1 million in 2022 and 2023. There are benefits to condensing this project into fewer construction phases or as few as one phase of construction. It is possibly more cost-effective because it avoids cost escalation possible due to inflation, increased cost of materials, and other unknowns. It also prevents us from paying for mobilization by a contractor more or over 4 possible phases. It shortens the timeframe of construction impacts to downtown businesses, but does create a larger single-year budget impact. Spreading the project over multiple phases does increase our expenses, but it allows us some additional flexibility for working around businesses and traffic. The feedback we got on September 24th was evenly split between leaving it as several phases or condensing it. So we're asking for you to provide us with some additional direction tonight. Once we have your additional direction, we'll be working with the consultant to schedule a public meeting regarding this project. But before doing that, we do feel like we need some further direction from you on whether this is a 4-phase project or a fewer or 1-phase project.
And if I might just follow up on what Sarah was saying, it's at some point we'd be, issuing an RFP for the way we've designed this for your considerations to bring a construction manager on board, and they need to know how long a period they'd be working for. Would it be a 7-month project, or would it be a multi-year project? So, and then also in terms of just the design that we're talking about, I think knowing the period that we're talking about would be important. So that's why we are trying to get some direction tonight.
I know that in our meeting, we gave you some direction at the fire station, but you haven't brought the formal plan with all of our recommendations back to us, correct? And as far as phasing this, then we would, my question is, don't we have to have kind of like what we're going to do as a final draft before we can kind of decide?
I don't know if you'd need to have that before you could decide how long a period you wanted to do. But in terms of the next step, our understanding of the next step and what we thought we talked about at the work session was then now to have a public workshop to get some public input, and then the council will approve the final design before anything moves forward. Okay. But we again thought that really before we had the public workshop that it would be a good idea to get some direction on the how long the project would last.
Each of them has its pros and cons. Me personally, I think if we can kind of condense it and save some money on the materials and the staging, maybe affecting, traffic back and forth, construction, no construction, that's kind of the way I'm leaning.
Could we have somebody, a consultant or something, to kind of look at this to see which way we ought to jump?
I think we have spoken with them. It's the consultant that you met with in September, Confluence. They actually have indicated to us that they think that this is worthy of consideration. I think that their recommendation would be shorter would be better. As Sarah indicates, there are pros and cons both ways, but I think that was the suggestion that they made to us was, boy, you really might want to shorten this. It could make it easier in some ways. So that's their recommendation.
Yeah. Tom?
And I agree, the shorter would be better, but we've got another large project coming in front of us too, and that's the water plant. I don't want to have tens of millions of dollars out unless I know that we can sustain that hit. I'm a little worried on that. We're gonna make all these decisions now, then it's all gonna slap us in the face, and then we're gonna be standing there.
Yes, sir. The one thing I can tell you, and the 5-year projection that we did have it in the budget that you approved recently, which does include the entirety of the water treatment plant, $14 million. It shows us having a balance, the lowest balance it shows us having in the gaming fund would be at the end of 2021, and we'd still have at the end of 2020, we'd still have about $21 million, and then it would slowly start going up after that.
That's
So it seemed,
with the project
Yes.
at One North?
yes, that's right. It includes One North, includes water treatment plant, and over the 4-year period includes this project that we're talking about, but we just have it showing spread out over 4 years.
Okay, so in your forecast, that's what I was gonna ask. In your forecasting, you use this 4-year
Yes.
forecast?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
So it doesn't change the bottom line at the end of 2023. It's, if anything, perhaps we'd save a little bit. by shortening.
Uh-huh.
The idea of having 4 phases is tricky because, you know, I worry about what the impact would be to the businesses if we're continually tearing up and refiguring trees and sidewalks and, you know, whatnot. And then just having downtown be 4 years worth of upheaval. If we were to condense it into one phase, do we know approximately how long that would run and if weather would be an issue as we push through it?
We don't know how long actual construction would be. Confluence does think that it's possible, depending on when we would issue a notice to proceed, that it could be done in one construction season. But I don't know that we have any clarity beyond that in terms of, you know, are we talking about 60 days or, you know, 120 days? But they do think it could be done in a construction season.
That
So
would be.
should we do a motion? Is that,
Yeah, I would appreciate that, yes, sir.
then I will move that we reduce the construction phase to 1 phase.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who was the second?
I'm sorry, who meant Jesse? Okay.
So, all right, well, based on that, first of all, we will bring a budget amendment to you at some point in the future, formalizing that, and then this will allow us to help with the planning in terms of bringing the project itself eventually to you for your approval. So thank you.
17, emergency snow route on Armour Road.
I'll call on the acting police chief, Kevin Freeman.
Sir, I wasn't expecting that.
Chief Beamer is away, so you're acting.
Here we go. So what you have in front of you is a consideration of an emergency snow route for Armour Road with the improvements that were made to the Complete Streets program out there. Kind of modeled after what Liberty does, but it actually gives some notice who calls the snow emergency, what it means when there's parking on the snow route, time to move those cars, and when termination is going to take place also. Some other things in there also includes the provisions for towing of the vehicles and the owner's rights to obtain those vehicles back. So I think basically what we're looking for tonight is some consideration on whether or not we want to move this forward and have the city councilor actually draft an ordinance that would be similar to what we're looking at here.
Sorry to catch you by surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we had brought this to you, I think it was October 1st, and that was before the public meeting on October 15th, in which you did provide some direction for the short term as far as the Armour Road Complete Street. And we'll bring that back to you next June, except for some short-term items which you directed us to look at, which we'll talk about a little bit later tonight. So because of that, Councilmember Clevenger suggested, and we also thought it might be a good idea as snow season approaches to put an ordinance in place, and that would allow us to put out some temporary signage when we see a forecast coming up to let people know that they should not park in those parallel parking spaces, which would make it a bit easier for us. So that's our question for you tonight, is whether you'd like to go ahead and proceed with this.
This is kind of related to it. I mean, one thing, you're going to have to remove snow, and you got the vehicles parked there that is going to be a problem on the snow removal. But also related to this is, what about an idea of, say, 2-hour parking out here? Say from Fayette to maybe Lynn. We could have 2-hour parking out there, and then you wouldn't have these cars out here all the time. The vehicles parked out there. I just wondered what people thought about that. We have 2-hour parking lot on Armour Road up to Fayette, but not past Fayette. But now that's Monday through Friday and up till I think 5 p.m.
I don't think that'd be workable in that I think it was designed for longer-term parking. Like the people I see parking there when I walk my dog are the people who are in the apartments in the mornings and stuff. They don't want to be restricted 2 hours. There'd be no point in having the parallel parking there. People at City Hall park along there.
There'd be a
and they're
point
there
to it.
for a
They could
long
park
time.
there for 2 hours.
Yeah, but if I'm in an apartment building, I don't want to be moving my car every 2 hours. I want to park it there, go in, get up in the morning, go to work, which is what these people are doing. And then people at City Hall, or even when they start using Dyke Park again, they don't want to be restricted 2 hours. You want to be able to park there and stay there. I think that's what it was designed for to begin with. 2-hour parking would be really hard to enforce, and I don't think it makes that usable at all. What would be the point in having the parallel parking at those locations?
Well, basically, we're talking about a snow route right
Right.
now.
That's
Yeah,
what we're
why don't
asking
we-
about, yes, sir.
Why don't we go ahead with that? And,
I had a question on the snow route.
Just-
Yeah, the one thing I'm a little concerned with is the towing and then the charging the people for towing. Getting the signs out there is obviously going to be important. Let them know that they need to not park there. But as it's so new right now, I'm wondering if somebody was parked there and their car was towed, is there any way to, defray the expense of being towed since it's a brand new thing? And I would be a little upset if I'd missed the sign, had my car parked there, and then was towed off. Is there a way that the city could assist with that towing cost, or do we have the ability to?
Well,
Do
you could
anything.
subsidize our cost to tow them away. It is, I'll just say it's typical with cities that have a snow emergency route to say you got to move your car.
Sure,
I mean, under penalty of, of paying a towing fee. But
And it may be something temporary for the first month or the first little bit that it's in place, because, typically snow routes are on roads that have been there for a little while. This is a new design.
the one thing I guess I'd say is we're talking about putting something in the code. I'm not sure how we put a temporary reprieve in the code.
I don't know.
The only thing I would say to that is, I don't know that that's necessary, but on the apartment complex, maybe informing the apartment owners that it's become an emergency snow route so that they can communicate it to their residents. 'Cause
To park
that-
lots.
I think that's
Sure.
the most likely scenario when you're sleeping in and snowing in the morning and you didn't move your car, and then so I think they're the most at risk
We could do that.
of awareness.
well, I don't really believe that this Armour Road thing was meant for those people to have a place to park that's got a big parking lot behind their building.
Absolutely.
I just don't,
Well, for
Well, of
right now,
course-
we've got the parallel parking. We need to decide what we're going to do with the snow.
Fred? Tom.
What constitutes an emergency snow route? An eighth of an inch of snow, 20 inches of snow? Who's going to be in charge of issuing that snow report, or whatever I want to call it?
Well, I do think that you would have to allow staff some discretion when we have a forecast. And so, as we know, forecasts are sometimes wrong. Sometimes if a lot of snow is predicted and it doesn't come, we would be putting out the temporary signs, and once those are out. Now, if we didn't get it and we didn't actually have to plow, I don't know that we would really try to do that.
They
But
got to park in the back lot, big deal.
Right.
The residents over here is what we're complaining about.
Ro-
So they got to park in the back lot, big deal.
Right, they'd have to find somewhere else to park if we put out the sign saying no parking, emergency snow route. Yeah.
We have other emergency snow routes?
No, we
This
don't.
is our only one? This will be our only?
This would be our only one.
And the reason for it is because we need to push the snow to the curb.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, the parallel parking would make it more difficult on Armour in particular, which is, of course, an important street to get cleared away.
I'm fine with staff preparing the ordinance.
Agreed.
See it from there.
Yep, me too.
All right. We will work on preparing that. You did see we kind of braced it on Liberty, but we didn't actually create the ordinance yet. But we'll do that and we'll bring it to you. Thank you.
Additional contingency, parking lot at 13th and Knox, Resolution 19-074.
Thank you, sir. In September, the City Council approved a contract with Gunner Construction Company to construct a parking lot at East 13th Avenue and Knox Street. In the memo in your packet, we did discuss that a change order did become necessary due to conditions that were found on the site with the grade of the, with the soil. And so that did necessitate a change order in the amount of some $12,000. And that does reduce the contingency that was originally established for the project. So to allow for if we need additional contingency and want to continue moving forward in an expeditious way on the project, we are asking if the council would add an amount to the, another $10,000 to the contingency that was originally approved so that we can proceed with delay after authorization from the mayor if we have a need to as the project progresses.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
19.
Agreement with Northland Festivals, Snake Saturday, resolution number 19-071.
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, before you this evening is a contract between the city and Northland Festivals for the 2020 Snake Saturday Parade and related activities. I can tell you that the contract is essentially identical to the ones that we've had in recent past years, except, of course, the dates have changed for the appropriate events. And this year, for the first time, I might add, in a number of years, there is a $1,500 increase. $1,500, right, Eric? Yeah. $1,500 increase in the total amount of the contract. And in talking to JD, I think the lion's share of that is being used up by the increased cost of insurance for putting on that kind of an event. I'll be glad to answer any other questions, and more significantly, JD, Mr. Green is here this evening, the president of the Northland Festivals, and I'm sure he'd be glad to answer any questions you may have as well.
Well, we've already got a proclamation.
You do have the proclamation, so, but that's not a legal requirement to do the next.
Move to approve.
Second. Aye.
Award of contract, Burger King demolition, 1911 Armour Road, resolution number 19-072.
Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
As the new Burger King store at Vernon nears completion, we're working towards the redevelopment of the existing Burger King site at 1911 Armour Road. We do have the responsibility to demolish the existing store before we transfer the property to the master developer. The demolition will remove the building and all the site improvements except for the Taney Street driveway. That drive will remain in use as a construction entrance before it is eventually removed by the component developer. We opened 5 bids from demolition contractors last Thursday to demolish the Burger King. The low bid was submitted by Industrial Salvage and Wrecking. They've been in business since 1961, and we are familiar with their work on other projects, so recommend them as being the lowest and best bid. The contract specifies that demolition is to begin within 5 days of the issuance of a notice to proceed. We will issue the notice to proceed when the last day of operations for the existing Burger King is known with certainty, and we will also be coordinating with the fire department to allow for training time inside the building. Staff would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Also with the police department, if they want to go have some fun. You're saying, no, what, are you going to be greedy?
We'll have the PD will be down there as well, like we did at the OUP building.
Question number 2, when we, I know we own it now, but before the demolition, has there been any consideration of all the nice mature plants over there, harvesting them and replanting them somewhere before it gets torn down to nothing? Pat, you can answer that question too. I don't know if we're just going to tear it down and not worry about the plants that are around the building, the nice bushes and whatever.
No, that hadn't come up. Usually they have to go for the next building that's going in, though.
I think they're gardeners, sir.
Okay, just thought I would ask.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
21.
21.
21.
License agreement, installation of monitoring wells on city rights-of-way, Bill number 7456, ordinance number 9253.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hopper.
Thank you. On December 18, 2018, the City Council approved a license agreement with Quick Trip Corporation to install 3 groundwater monitoring wells. The locations were south and east of the former Quick Trip site at East 23rd and Burlington. The monitoring wells were installed to monitor the level of contaminants from an underground fuel storage tank that leaked several years ago. Recently, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources requested Quick Trip to install 2 additional monitoring wells further to the south to the existing wells to determine how the plume of fuel extends and where. The proposed new wells will be located at Buchanan and Clay Street, just south of 21st Avenue. In order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and the request of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, city staff recommends approval of the ordinance granting Quick Trip the right to install 2 additional groundwater monitoring wells within the city's right-of-ways.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Quick Trip Corporation regarding the installation and use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in city right-of-way for groundwater sampling.
I move that bill number 7456 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9253.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Quick Trip Corporation regarding the installation and use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in city right-of-way for groundwater sampling.
22.
Approval of subscription agreement with Lexipol, resolution number 19-073.
Gary?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Fire Chief, Dave Hargis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is to create an agreement with a company called Lexipol for producing standard operating procedures for us. They're a company that's nationwide that does that on a regular basis. They employ lawyers that look over each state's regulations and best practices of the fire service, and they provide us with templates to use to create our own SOPs. With the complexity of the legal system and things going on now, it's becoming increasingly hard for our limited staff to be able to put together and maintain a relevant SOP standard. This company does that that's what they do for public safety. The police department has been using their service for the last 6 years with great results. So this is to add us onto there, and we can use that subscription service as well. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Question, is this like an annual subscription? Will this be an annual cost?
Yes.
Okay, then, so,
We talked about this in the budget process and we added it, we included it
Correct.
in the budgeting, right? Okay.
is this
Move to approve.
set up for like a higher overhead on this year? Or will it be like a 9,700 and kind of an exact amount?
It'll be that each year.
Each year, okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 23.
One North TIF Plan Second Amendment, creating Lot 9A, split off of Burger King Starbucks lot from Lot 9. Bill number 7457, ordinance number 9254.
Thank you, sir. Currently, Lot 9 of the original TIF plan encompasses the medical office building that was constructed in One North and the Burger King that will soon be vacated to move to a new building short of distance away to the east, as we've just talked about. This amendment would simply split off the current Burger King lot and allow it to be redeveloped as a Starbucks location. The TIF Commission previously approved this. It's now before you. We do recommend approval. If you have any questions, the attorney for the master developer is here and can answer any further questions you might have.
First reading.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
An ordinance approving the Second Amendment to the North Kansas City Destination Developers Tax Increment Financing Plan, making findings with respect thereto, authorizing certain actions by city officials, and containing a severability clause.
I move that bill number 7457 be placed on second and final reading and passes item number 9254.
Second.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
An ordinance approving the Second Amendment to the North Kansas City Destination Developers Tax Increment Financing Plan, making findings with respect thereto, authorizing certain actions by city officials, and containing a severability clause.
Do we know a Burger King open date, move date? No.
No, we don't.
License agreement, placement of city camera, 111 East 10th Avenue, bill number 7461, ordinance number 9258.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Major Freeman.
Thank you. More prepared for this one. This item agenda and the next one are both very similar. They are license agreements that allow us to place one of our street camera network cameras onto private property. And as you recall in the budget, you approved us for 3 new locations and replacing 3 of our temporary trailer cameras as well. 2 of the locations that we determined were deficient in the city are on the far east side of town and then on the far south side of town. Problems with those locations are a lot of that is MoDOT right away. We don't own any property down there. And it's difficult to get MoDOT's approval to put anything on their property that records any data. So we sought alternatives to placing these cameras, and we found 2 different businesses that are going to allow us to place these cameras on their property, very similar in nature to what we did with the NT Realty property, I believe last year's when we did that one. They're non-penetrating mounts. This one particularly is at the Regal Building at 111 East 10th Avenue. It would be on the northwest corner of the building, and it would probably give us a good 270-degree coverage of the 10th and Burlington to 10th and Swift area right there. So the license agreement that was prepared by Mr. Barzee gives protections for both the city and the property owner, and very similar in nature to the one that was prepared and approved for NT Realty. Be happy to answer any questions on that one.
I notice here, approved budget for that is $40,000 now. Is that $40,000 a camera?
No, sir. That's for the entire project.
So how many cameras are there?
6 total.
6, so it'd be
3.
a little over $6,000.
Correct. We have the 3 new locations, these 2 that we're talking about tonight, and then we're going to replace the 3 cameras on our trailers that we move around for our special events.
Thank you.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Regal Development Company regarding placement of city equipment on roof of property located at 111 East 10th Avenue, owned by Regal Development Company in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7461 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9258.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Regal Development Company regarding placement of city equipment on roof of property located at 111 East 10th Avenue, owned by Regal Development Company in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay. 25.
License agreement, placement of city camera, 2604 Industrial Drive. Bill number 7459, ordinance number 9256.
First reading.
Aye.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and ELCA Properties Incorporated regarding placement of city equipment on roof of property located at 2604 Industrial Drive, owned by ELCA Properties Incorporated in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7459 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9256.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and ELCA Properties Incorporated regarding placement of city equipment on roof of property located at 2604 Industrial Drive, owned by ELCA Properties Incorporated in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
26.
Disposal of surplus equipment, resolution number 19-076.
Thank you, sir. I'll call Mr. Hopper.
Thank you. Various departments within the city of North Kansas City have identified several items that they were no longer of use to the city for various reasons. The items in this auction include office furniture, pickup trucks, police cars, musical equipment, bicycles, computers, and more. Staff recommends using Purple Wave for auction items because of several reasons. Two would be they have been successful in selling items over the estimated resale values, and Purple Wave's auction is conducted entirely online at no cost to the city. A resolution approving the auction and the disposal of surplus property is proposed for discussion.
How much are the police cars? I want to bid on one. Go
Whatever
on
you
Purple
bid.
Wave to find out? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 27.
Dedication of easements to KCP&L in 1 North. Bill number 7460, ordinance number 9257.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Mr. Barzee.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this evening we have before you, an easement conveyance from the city as the owners of certain rail property within the 1 North area to Kansas City Power and Light Company, where they've placed in some underground. They've already done the work to keep this project going on. Typically, you get the easement before you do the work, but to keep the project moving quickly, they didn't provide the easement to us until just in the last few weeks. And some of the property, in fact, that when they started doing the work we owned that we no longer own. So those easements will need to go to those respective property owners to get those approved. But these that are before you this evening, it's one conveyance, but as you'll notice, there are 4 separate easement areas, and staff is requesting that the council approve these easements to Kansas City Power and Light Company.
Does Kansas City Power and Light Company still exist as a legal entity now they've changed their name to Evergy?
They're the ones that sent us just within the last, we got this back within the last week, right, Sarah? Certainly before, since the change of the name. But typically, that's not atypical when things like this happen, that they can still use that name any way they want. I think Evergy or whatever it is as much a marketing name as anything else. But I can assure you that they own power plants, including a nuclear power plant, and it has the name of KCP&L on it as, you know, the owner of those properties. So they provided, I would have used whatever name they gave us, but I asked the question, and this is what came back, so.
First reading.
Aye.
There wasn't anyone opposed, was there? Okay. An ordinance authorizing and approving an easement conveyance to Kansas City Power and Light Company and granting the easements described therein within the city of North Kansas City, Missouri for the city's One North development.
I move that bill number 7460 be placed on second and final reading and pass with ordinance number 9257.
Second.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing and approving an easement conveyance to Kansas City Power and Light Company and granting the easements described therein within the city of North Kansas City, Missouri for the city's One North development. Approving accounts due and payable by the city through November 1st, 2019. Bill number 7458, ordinance number 9255.
First reading.
Second.
Aye.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through November 1st, 2019.
I move that bill number 7458 be placed on second and final reading and pass with ordinance number 9255.
Second.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through November 1st, 2019.
Thank you, sir. You do have several items under staff comments in your packet, including the upcoming city items of note, YMCA monthly financial report for the month of September, and the 2019 Friday in the Park report submitted by Ken Rummert. I'd like to call on the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahoto.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just thought I'd give a quick update on the city's public art project over in Richards Park. The piece was installed. It was very cold and sleeting on Wednesday, October 30th. Sija Chen was here in person, and she helped oversee that installation, and several of you joined us on Thursday as she gave a brief artist talk about kind of the concept and also unveiled the name, which is Bloom. There is a lot of site work left to do, so we consider this particular project about 1/3 done. Right now, what crews are working on is the lighting element, so a couple of lights have been spec'd for this particular project. Those lights are proving challenging being sourced, so the lead time on those lights right now, as we understand it, is anywhere between 8 and 10 weeks, which we did not anticipate when those lights were spec'd. So the second pour cannot be completed until those lights are installed. So you are seeing some braces on those pieces right now. That is really more of an act out of an abundance of caution, and that area is not what's considered secure just yet, so it's just really a deterrent to have anybody approach that particular sculpture. Once those lights are installed and that second pour is complete, we will restore that plaza, including adding the benches, and then the vegetation will be installed later on in the spring. Sija Chen will come back, from what our understanding is, and we'll have a more formal dedication at that time.
Can I ask a question about that? Someone asked me in Ward 2 if the R was coming back for Richards Park. Is that not going to be, I don't think, will that not be included in?
We have those in storage, but no, it's not planned as part of, we don't plan to return them to Richards Park. We have them in storage if we find another use for them.
Okay.
You said the second pour, 10 weeks. We're talking about January. It's going to be too cold to pour concrete.
Absolutely. I mean, it is something that we are considering, that timeline. Sometimes you get lucky and you roll the dice in January and it's warm enough to be able to pour.
If you find a concrete plant that's open. Most of them are closed.
Right. I mean, Musselman and Hall, that is who our city's contractor is, and that's who we're working with.
We're probably talking March or April.
It could be. It very well could be. At this point, like I said, the project, the lights that were spec'd by the engineer for this project, we had no idea that there would be that much of a lead time on those particular items.
I just want to make sure it's braced enough for 4 or 5 months down the road.
No, it absolutely is. And, kudos to our municipal services crew. They're the ones who brace those.
We do have, and CJA gifted a maquette or a model to the city, and I have it on display over here. It will go up into the cabinet, should anybody kind of like to see that particular item. It doesn't fit in that nook. You know, I went over there. The challenge is that it's not deep enough, and the leaf petals actually sprout out. I mean, I guess if we were to screw it in there, it would work, but I don't think that that's what anybody wants to see over there.
Thank you, Kim. Calling the Fire Chief, Dave Hargis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to remind everybody, hope you got the invite for our annual recognition ceremony on November 21st at 7 o'clock. We'll be pinning our new members and anybody that gets promoted over the year and recognizing anybody that's left. So we'll have cake and punch as usual, so please be sure and join us.
Thank you, Dave. Just like to note that Councilmember Clevenger and I attended the Missouri Housing Development Commission public hearing last night down at the plaza to speak on behalf of the project at 10007 Armour, which has applied for MHDC tax credits. So thank you, Councilman Clevenger. We'd like to remind the council of the joint hospital hospital board city council meeting. Our annual meeting with them at the hospital. That's at 5:30 on November 25th, 2019. I believe that's a Monday. And lastly, we'd just like to note some of our work since the October 15th public meeting on the Armour Road project, on short-term projects that the City Council had asked us to work on. One, we have had quite a few discussions with the Mop Bucket. We think we've come up with some good ideas to help them, which they seem very receptive to. We'll report a little bit more fully on that and get some direction from you at your next work session on November 19th. Also, we have been talking to our engineer about possibilities at the post office for the parking in front of the post office. Again, we've come up with some possibilities, and we'll be presenting some of those to you on the 19th, and looking for some direction from you on those if you're ready to give that. So we do feel like we're making progress on those two short-term items. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Fred, you're up.
Nothing tonight.
Tom?
I want to thank, I got to see our new leaf picker upper. It's doing great with that new design vent on top. It doesn't look like it's on fire. It blows it out the back. It works great. The city crews all love it too, because it's brand new. I mean, it's going to work flawlessly, and it works great. Just thank you.
All right, we got this Saturday, second Saturday. They're having an art expo at Design Works, as well as a Armour art walk. So they'll have pop-up artists in various businesses along Armour. Also, Wonkaween was a good event. A lot of kids out there, a lot of families out there, everyone having a lot of fun. And the fire department had a pretty good haunted ambulance going on there. But I had one question. So one issue that kind of came up with Armour Road Complete Street was public engagement. We do a couple state of the cities, one for Clay County EDC and one for the Business Council. We consider doing one for the residents. Do an overview of just all the projects and everything going on. Or have we done one in the past?
So what is it? I'm not.
Like a state of the city.
Oh.
Like we did.
Oh.
And then you post it on social media, don't you?
Well, no, I mean,
Posted.
we've done that with the one that we do at the Business Council, that we've posted that. Is that what you're?
But I mean, like one to host and have residents and anyone else interested
To come.
like an open event, yeah.
Oh, I
yeah.
see.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we could do something like that. I mean,
I was just throwing it out
sure.
because I mean that seemed to be one of the issues was just public engagement overall with some at least, and maybe we'll get more people out there and update them on projects that are ongoing.
Well, sure, we can look at doing that. I mean, we've already done the work as far as
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
together the PowerPoint. So
Okay, just something I was thinking about. Other than that, I'll quit talking before I come up with something else.
I have no comments tonight.
Couple things. We'll say thanks to Mallory and Crystal and anybody else who had planned the employee banquet. That was a lot of fun. You guys did great work. That centerpiece finally died, and we're sad to have it go. The Iron District is up and running, and if you haven't been over there, it's pretty neat. It's a little chilly right now, so they are offering curbside pickup for a lot of their places. So you can swing in and grab it, call ahead, order. Tomorrow morning, I believe, is bulk item pickup. So if you're watching this and you haven't remembered to put your bulk items out, go ahead and do that. And that's all for me.
I only had one comment that I'm going to miss a couple of events because Mary Poppins is playing at the North Kansas City High School during the firefighter event and recognition ceremony. And also, I think I might miss the mayor's tree lighting, so, because my daughter's in Mary Poppins. So that's my priority.
Huh?
Good. Sorry.
Okay, all right. That's all I had tonight.
I was gonna, can I backtrack? Add one more thing? I got a shout out to the kids back there. They've been very well behaved and very quiet, and they've been back there a while, so thank you, kids. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll try to make mine short then, so they can get out of here. First of all, I want to thank Northland Festivals again for partnering with us on the Snake Saturday. They always do such a great job, so look forward to working with them again. And I also wanted to thank Jesse for his delicious peach cobbler. It was really good that you brought forth, so thank you.
Say thanks to Brooke. That was mostly her.
Okay. As far as the affordable housing, I know that's one of our, in the Communities for All Ages on item number 2, and that's what we're trying to accomplish with the Galley Lofts and other projects in the city, and being in the National League of Cities and their Community and Economic Development Subcommittee, that's another focus is affordable housing. You know, throughout the country, that's what cities are struggling with, so I'm glad to see that we're offering, hopefully getting some affordable housing. I'm going to be missing the next council meeting and probably the mayor's tree lighting as well. I'll be in San Antonio at the National League of Cities. So just wanted to let people know that I won't be here. And don't want to say too much about the YMCA. They're doing great. Don't want to jinx them. Another month with a surplus. So thank you.
I would like to think, I don't know what group it is from the high school, but high school students came out raking leaves over the past weekend. They had a real nice day for it, and they really gun ho about it too. There was a bunch of them, so I appreciate that. If anybody knows the school, might let them know that the neighbors had high regards for them. It's something appreciated, and you like to see the young adults, I guess, really, out like that. That's really nice of them.
I ain't got nothing.
Number 32, consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a personnel matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute Section 610.0213.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
I have to call roll. And who made the motion? Okay. Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.